So hello everyone.
Hello again.
Welcome to another ARTventure. So today our ARTventure takes us into using the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen.
Very exciting this was.
That's a mouthful, that is.
Yeah, Pentel Pocket Brush Pen.
So Kirsty and I, we both went to London on Friday. And we were specifically looking for the Manga Flex pens to restock. And we were going to check out CasArts in London.
One of the stores in CasArts, because there's loads.
They have got quite a few. They originally started up inside the art museum, didn't they?
Yeah.
The National Gallery.
Yeah, they expanded since then. Did find out that there isn't one actually near us. The nearest one is London, so...
That's unfortunate, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So we managed to find the brush pens on sale, and I wanted them for Jester's story, which I just finished storyboarding and I want to kind of get into, but I wanted to use a brush pen to ink it for something different.
Personally, I like using brush pens, but the comic work that we're doing at the moment, The Risen Fallen, brush pens won't work.
Yeah,
so
it doesn't really require the...
It needs a lot more tiny details, and you can't really do that with a brush pen so easily.
So yeah, the brush pens, they're quite small. They're a lot smaller than I thought they were in the box.
They were very small and they are very light. I usually prefer something heavier. As you can see, I'm using a metal pencil, very heavy metal pencil.
Whereas I'm quite heavy-handed, so for me, having something a little bit lighter is quite good. I was very nervous, which we'll talk about when we actually get to the inking process. So here we're just doing pencil sketches. What we did, when we tend to do ARTventures, we tend to draw a picture for each other.
Yeah, we swap over. Yeah.
And ink. So I've drawn Jester, and then Kirsty has drawn her character Nibs.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we swap over. So I ink Nibs, and then Kirsty will ink Jester.
I will apologise now for the amount my head gets in the camera again.
And mine will do so later on as I get to the colouring stage.
The camera itself was quite high up above our heads, so
we're trying to find the best angle so that you can see both of us working without having to have two separate cameras.
Yeah, because we tend to use one for streaming, one for actually recording,
so yeah, as you can see, we're just doing our basic pencil work using our blue coloured lead. I am thinking about switching to the red lead.
See, I didn't find it much easier using the red on scanning and stuff like that. It makes no difference.
I just think because my eyes are bad, it's easier for me to see the red, so I might switch to the red for a bit and see how I get on with it.
Yeah, trying to find a reference picture now for Steph to use and myself to use.
So yeah, this is off we go. And you'll see that I set, like, every few strokes I move away because I'm terrified I'm going to make a mistake. Look, move away.
I've had experience using brushes before. I've got Japanese brushes at home, so I guess you could say I was a little bit more confident going into this.
But you can literally just see, like, every couple of strokes, especially with that hair, I move away. Move away.
Well, of course,
move away.
Generally speaking, of course, Steph's way of drawing is a lot more simplified than the way I draw, so I tend to draw hair a lot more detailed than Steph will. So, of course, it's going to take longer to ink the hair.
the thing, like, I found is I absolutely love how it flowed and how it did all the lines. I just think I have to gain a bit more confidence with it. I'm so worried that I'm going to mess up that I was almost shaking. And I think once I get over that, it'll be fine.
It's I find that when using a brush, you have to move it differently to how you would if you were using a pigment liner.
It's as you said, like when we were doing it, you need to commit to the stroke the minute you start it. You can't scratch along like do. You have to literally do one motion.
Yeah. It's tricky to use, I think, for beginners. I remember when I first started trying to use a brush instead of a normal pen, and I was terrified, and it looked horrible because, of course, I was still trying to use it the same way you would a normal pen or a pencil, and yeah, it just looked terrible.
Doing the details on the face.
She wasn't looking looking
not.
forward to that.
I was not. The thing is, I'm very, very messy with my line work if I don't take my time. And I think where I was pressing so lightly with the brush pen, I was kind of digging my own grave, as it were.
It's got quite a nice point to the actual brush though, so you can do smaller details quite nicely.
I definitely think inking the hair was the biggest learning curve for me. Just purely because obviously I could play around with the details and not have to worry too much about going wrong.
It was certainly a lot nicer to use than, say, using an alcohol-based marker to black out. Because if you use an alcohol-based marker, a lot of the times it will go kind of streaky and dry looking.
It also bleeds,
Yeah.
whereas this ink doesn't bleed.
No, it's a nice thickness, so that it does black out well.
I think that's one of the things you pointed out, was that it blacked out a lot better. It's not so
Yeah.
patchy like an alcohol marker.
Yeah.
With an alcohol marker, you have to do a base, and then once it's dry, you can add another
Go
layer
over
to.
again. Yeah.
Apologies for the lighting change.
It's cloudy.
The sun went behind a cloud.
Yes.
Dragon. I couldn't decide if I was saying dragon or ra then.
Yeah, these two do have comics eventually,
Yeah.
but they are still in extremely early stages of planning, so it's likely that you won't actually see them frequently for a little while yet.
Jester's story, you certainly won't see a lot of it. You might see sneak peeks.
You've done a lot more actual pictures of Jester though than I have of Nibs.
I think it's because where I do Risen, I don't really do individual pictures all that much. I do
No.
doodles for them, whereas Jester, I wanted to get his character and his movement down, so
Because he's very different from how you would normally.
he's very
Individual.
bouncy and dynamic.
He's also a lot more slender.
He's very skinny, long limbs. I love the fact that his neck is like super long. He's got a bit of a bobble head, but I love that about him.
Yeah, well that adds to the kind of design of the characters for that specific story though. Makes them stand out.
I do really love how Prince turned out as well. Normally I draw him quite, like with Prince and Jester, I usually draw them, as I said like last time, how like quite pointy and angular, where you've rounded him out just a little bit around the corners.
I've kind of done highlighting on the feathers as well. I didn't want to just kind of like do a black blob because I wanted to kind of make it look different from how you would normally do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is it from like the video and stuff, you can't really tell who's inked which one, but when you see them like up close you can tell.
Yeah, we know our own differences as well, so.
But I think it's good because we're both trying to practice so that when we do come to do a project we have in sort of the backlog file.
It's for now we call it Dragons. It hasn't got an official name, but that's what we call it at the moment.
But we're going to take a couple of years. We want to get most of Risen Fallen done before we start thinking about it.
Yeah.
But we just want to try and make our styles almost match up for that.
It's going to be a very tricky one, that one, because the elements of what we wanted to try and fuse it with.
I think if you remember, if you watched our 24-hour comic challenge, we drew it together.
Yeah.
But you can still very much tell where Kirsty's drawn and where I have drawn. Whereas with Dragons, we want it to be flawless, so
Yeah,
you can't
absolutely
tell.
flawless. That's a song, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just about to go absolutely flawless.
Sorry.
Oh dear.
Yeah, we tested the colours before we actually started colouring on top of it, and we found that 3 different brands of markers and none of them smeared the ink at all. We were very impressed.
Yeah, I didn't test the tiger markers before I started using them though.
Yeah,
But they didn't bleed either, so that's...
well, three out of 4 tests, you would hope that the 4th would still be the same.
Well, you never know. I don't know how they'd hold up with watercolours. I think that might be the next thing that I test.
Yeah.
And obviously you're going to test the ink side of things.
I'm going to test it with ink because Nib's story I wanted to colour with inks, so...
And I wanted to do Jesters with watercolours. So that should be interesting.
Yeah, because also I kind of want to use brush pens like this for another story I've got in the making, but again it's a long way off. brush better for it.
It's not just like you've got the Pentel water brush pens, but they have like coloured inks in them, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing this little art venture. I think
It was a good one, especially I think because we were using a tool we'd never used before, so it was quite interesting. Yeah, my only thought of when we were using it was it is too light for me. I was mentally trying to figure out ways to make it heavier, like stuffing blue tack in it or something like that, just to weigh it a bit.
See, I quite like how light it is. It just feels a little bit flimsy, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word. It's not.
For the pen itself, retail it was about £15-16, and personally, for how flimsy it feels, I would never have paid that much for it.
I think the price for it is mostly the ink.
Exactly.
And the actual brush itself, not the actual plastic it's made of. I mean, I felt cheaper stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's not leaked or anything like that, and it's very good quality, so I don't really mind paying. But hopefully, like, obviously, it depends on how long the bristles actually last for me, I think, because I'm quite aggressive when I ink.
But they are synthetic, they're plastic bristles rather than using something like hair or something, so you would imagine that hopefully they should be sturdy enough to last a good long while.
Touch wood. I think it's strange because neither one of us actually uses markers for these characters.
No.
As we said, Kirsty uses inks for hers and I tend to use watercolours for mine, so using markers we have to try and pick out the right colours.
Yeah, well, Nibs at the moment hasn't got a set colour palette because I've only really been using a very select amount of pens if I've just got pens on me. Whereas, of course, you have a colour palette already for Jester.
Oh, look, this is where my head starts to get in the way.
Yeah.
Apologies for my fat head. But we are coming to the end of our video. But the Pentel brush pen is something that I'm definitely going to keep using.
Definitely.
I'm glad I finally invested in one, so...
Definitely for colour pictures and stuff like that, I will definitely use it more for that.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will see you next time for another art venture.